Law enforcement officers risk their lives every day. They deserve better, and the American people deserve. I have the floor, Mr. Jordan.
Lady has
What? Did I strike a nerve? Law enforcement officers deserve better than to be utilized as pawns. And you and your colleagues should be ashamed of yourself.
The gentlelady will suspend and the clock will be stopped.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make it quite clear that this amendment is completely irrelevant. I served as a law enforcement officer for 27 years. It is a tough job, and good police officers deserve your support. You know, it's interesting to see my colleagues on the other side of the aisle support the police when it is politically convenient to do so. Law enforcement officers risk their lives every day. They deserve better, and the American people deserve. I have the floor, Mr. Jordan.
Lady has
what? Did I strike a nerve? Law enforcement officers deserve better than to be utilized as pawns. And you and your colleagues should be ashamed of yourself.
The gentlelady will suspend and the clock will be stopped. I want to admonish members. They must not interrupt someone who has the time.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a
simply
question?
Can't shout out. If you think that someone is saying
I agree.
Mr. Jordan, you don't know what in the heck you're talking about. You know nothing about what law enforcement officers
I know about my motive.
And you're using them as pawns because it serves your ridiculous political purpose.
Val, everyone must suspend. I am making the point. No one may shout out when someone else has the time. Not Mr. Gomert.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Not Mr. Jordan. Nobody.
Not Mr. Cicilline.
Not
Ms. Demings.
He didn't do that. But nobody.
Not Mr. Jordan.
Not Ms.
Nobody.
Okay, no, but I agree with that. But
and how do we?
Everybody.
I have a question.
I will simply. There is no question. Nobody may shout out.
When you give a speech, Mr. Chairman, about motives and questioning motives, and then our motives are questioned, how do we address that?
The rules allow a request words
I have
point of
watched
inquiry.
them live and die, and you know nothing about that. And to utilize them as political pawns.
I have a point of.
Law enforcement officers risk their lives every day. They deserve better, and the American people deserve. I have the floor, Mr. Jordan.
Lady has
what? Did I strike a nerve? Law enforcement officers deserve better than to be utilized as pawns. And you and your colleagues should be ashamed of yourself.
The gentlelady will suspend and the clock will be stopped.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, I believe under the rules I have an opportunity to respond since...
The Chair recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, if you go back well over months ago, I've been promoting the vaccine, and I obviously had a lot of conversations with my doctors for a number of reasons, needed to make sure that it was the right time for me, but was promoting the vaccine all along the way and calling people out who did promote vaccine hesitancy, which, by the way, if you start with President Biden himself.
Who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay.
Would you get it? Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us. I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump. If Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
I don't trust the president, and I don't trust the FDA.
If and when the vaccine comes, it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done.
The American people don't trust the process. I don't.
You want to talk about vaccine hesitancy? That is vaccine hesitancy.
No, it is
President
not.
Biden needs to come out and admit he was wrong when he was trying to discourage people from taking the vaccine late last year. It's safe, it's effective, and anybody who was trying to give concern about the vaccine or the FDA owes an apology because that's just not accurate. So anyway, I'm going to continue to promote the vaccine and the safety and effectiveness of it and would encourage others to take it. Go back.
Well, I thank you for yielding back. However, Mr. Scalise, I think you are aware that those comments were made before the vaccine was approved.
But it was made during the process of the
Well,
FDA
during the
going
process
through
is
Operation
one-
Warp Speed, which
During the
produced
process
3
is one thing.
vaccines.
Doing the process is one thing, but they were made before the vaccines.
But people listened to that and said, why take it if the president, Joe Biden at the time, that was not president, but if he said, this process was rushed or the FDA shouldn't be trusted, do you really think that there weren't people listening to that?
I just want the record to be clear that the vaccines were not approved when those statements were made. Still not approved. And with that,
advanced program.
Senator Paul. Administrator Guzman, I've sent 2 letters to you signed by 50% of the committee members requesting specific information regarding PPP loans to Planned Parenthood affiliates. We have not gotten a response so far. How many first draw PPP loans have been approved to Planned Parenthood affiliates?
So specifically on specific borrowers, the SBA has not commented on specific borrowers.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm in charge of oversight over your $1 trillion agency, and I'm asking you, how many have been approved?
Well, we don't publicly release that information. And one thing.
So you are in defiance of Congress. You will do what you want, not what Congress wants.
We have provided you a full listing.
You have not provided us with any listing of Planned Parenthood affiliates who've received money. This is an ongoing problem. The previous administration said it was unlawful. This is a big deal. The previous administration said it was unlawful and told them to return the money. Your administration is now giving them money. This is a legal question. This is a big deal. This isn't something you come to Congress and just say, I'm not going to answer the questions.
Not at all. While I can't discuss specific borrower information, we
no one is stopping you from discussing this. In your written testimony, you discussed an individual recipient of money through the program. So you are willing to talk about individual recipients. You're just not willing to talk about Planned Parenthood. But there is a legal question here. We want to know how many first draw loans were given. We want to know how many second draw loans. We want to know, since Patrick Kelly, your associate, came here and told us that the affiliate rule has not been reversed. The affiliate rule predated, as far as I'm concerned, the Trump administration. It goes back decades because it was done to protect small businesses. So small business programs were supposed to go to small businesses, not big businesses. So Planned Parenthood has 16,000 employees. The previous administration determined that they're a big business. And yet you continue to give them money and you won't tell us how much you're giving. You won't tell us if you've reversed your policy. Have you reversed the long-standing affiliate policy that has been part of the Small Business Administration for decades?
No, we have not. And if I may, what we did provide to you is the full listing of all of the PPP loans. So it wasn't, we don't have a specific PPP file, but we did provide to your staff the full listing so that you could look at all of that information, including any Planned Parenthood. Specifically on the affiliation rule, nothing has changed with that regard. However, what I would say is that, specifically on affiliation, what applies here is management.
Apparently the data you sent us that was in collection was sent months ago and doesn't include the new loans. So we want to know about the new loans. I think we discovered the old loans, and now we'd like to know about the new loans. But then we have to have an answer. If it's illegal, according to the Small Business Office, to give money to Planned Parenthood, how did it become legal if you haven't changed the policy? So the previous administration said they are a big business. They said give the money back. You're giving money to the people that the small administration said it was illegal to give money to. That is a conundrum. That is a real problem.
And if I could speak to that letter was not a policy statement. It was not processed. In fact, the letter doesn't exist in SBA systems as it's not a formal process.
Which letter?
The letter that you referenced before in your letters to us about this issue specifically. And so we don't have.
But what are you talking about? The letter? What letter are you talking about? You're talking about the policy?
You're talking, right, which I would say is not a policy. How PPP.
So you're saying that the previous administration, when they denied funds to Planned Parenthood, they did not refer to a policy? They did not refer to the affiliate policy, which is the policy? You're saying the affiliate policy is not a policy?
The affiliation rule is a policy. What they were referring to was general. The affiliation rule, as we shared with you in our recent letter to you, and I apologize, that was yesterday, so I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review it, but affiliation arises under certain circumstances. Some of them don't apply to nonprofits in the case of ownership or board, stock options, or relations, identity of interest, which is more for foundations. But where this does apply is on management. And that's either where there's control of the officers.
But you can see how common sense would dictate that you would put something forward saying that you've now reinterpreted the policy to say Planned Parenthood is no longer a big business but a small business. Well, because you're working in direct contradiction to the previous Small Business Administration that said they are a big business. They went through all the same rules you're listing for me, and they concluded that, yes, Planned Parenthood had direct control over the affiliates, that the policies and the actions were dependent on the national branch, and that they did not meet the definition of a small business. And so you are aware that not only is Planned Parenthood a politically controversial agent, entity, but it's also one that the rest of government has controls on. We have put the Hyde Amendment in for decades to try to prevent taxpayer money from paying for abortion. Mm-hmm. But now you're going around the Hyde Amendment, giving them money, but then you're also reclassifying them as not a big business, as a small business, but you're not being forthright.
And if I may, I did not say that I'm not judging on the policy specifically with affiliation for a specific borrower, because again, we do not do that. I'm sharing the affiliation rule with you for your guidance. However, we don't. Basically, the borrowers attest to certain eligibility, and the lenders can rely on that attestation. The SBA doesn't directly.
But they were ruled illegal by the Small Business Administration, and you're reversing that policy, and you're saying, "Oh, we don't ever look at this. Somebody else. It's a self-attestation." Well, someone determined that they were illegally getting the money and told them to get it back, and now they're getting the money. I don't know how that can happen without an explanation from the Small Business Administration.
And then just to add on to that, the point at which SBA would look at that would be at the point of forgiveness. And so that prior, relationship is attestation by the borrower to the lender.
But that's not the way, when I think it was Patrick Kelly, when he testified, he said you had thousands of ones that you had reviewed for honesty and whether or not they had been honest. And there were lists of people that hadn't been. And apparently Planned Parenthood was on the list. They're still on the list. So they're on a list of people illegally getting it. The policy was send it back, and now you're sending them more. You can see how it doesn't make sense to us. So, and then you're unwilling to comment on it, and you're unwilling to give us information. So my conclusion is that you believe you are above the law. And my only conclusion is that we still want the information. We are here for oversight, that our next step would be to subpoena you. But that's a disappointment to me, because when I voted for you, I thought you said you would be transparent, and it looks like you're specifically hiding this information from us.
And I just one other thing to note is that, again, as we go through forgiveness and the SBA then starts to look at these loans, that's when hold codes can arise as well. Under those circumstances, we'd be happy to continue to work with your staff to provide further information. But again, SBA at this point in those loan processes is obviously relying on the attestation of the borrowers as well as the lender.
So today, no Planned Parenthood has been forgiven. No Planned Parenthood loan has been forgiven.
That's correct.
So you know the information. You're just not willing to reveal it. So you know all about their information. The record should state you're unwilling to give the information to Congress.